So we've got all this set up. So let's have a look at setting our player up, shall we? What we want to do is we want to explore this environment with a player character. So I'm just going to zoom in. It's always useful to zoom in and have a look. Pick a spot on the ground and right. So here we are. I'm going to put one of our player characters standing here. Now this is for an FPS game, first person shooter. So we're looking through the eyes of the player. So we're not really interested in having a control that looks like a player. So what we're going to do is keep it really simple. I'm going to right click here. I'm going to create a 3D object of a capsule. And I've clicked it and it's not appeared here. Now what I'll do is I'll double click it and you see it's split in the middle of nowhere. So I'm going to delete that. This is sometimes you get an issue with this. Zoom in. I'm going to literally click on the landscape. See if that works. If this don't work, I'll try something else. It's created it in bit nearer this time. Capture what I'm going to, can you see I'm just manipulating it around with the arrows. That's backwards and forwards. Let's make this 0. Make that. The Y is how high it is. We want it there. Let's have a look at this. So, it's on right at the edge. So I'm going to move it. I want to move it so it's over here somewhere. So move it across the landscape. Across the landscape. Double click on it again. Let's move it. I was hoping to put it near the water actually. We'll zoom right up, zoom right out, and let's get it right over here, near where the water is. So there we can see the water. I want it near the water because I want my game is going to take place near that water. There we go. Let's get near the lake. I'm just moving it around. And then that's where I want it. Now I'm just going to manipulate it and move it right down using the green arrow. And where I want it is literally touching the ground. If I put in 50, 51, it's actually in the water, in the ground, so I'll have to move it up a bit. There. Now it depends where, because this is because it's on a hill there. If I put it there, it'd be about 50. Because remember when I set the height, I set it to 50. So it's going to be at least 50. So anyway, that's where my player is going to be. I'm quite happy with that. It's near the water, not too close to trees. It's in a good spot there. Now it's called capsule. Now we don't want it called capsule, we want it called player. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to rename it to player. And press enter. You can see it's changed it there and it's changed it there. And then I'm going to tag it as player. Tagging is one of the important things you get used to in Unity. You're going to be adding lots of tags. You're going to be having a tag for zombie. Just helps with the coding side of things, which we're going to come to later. So there's my player. Then we get the main. Then what we're going to do on the player, we're going to create an empty. Now this empty is going to act as a pivot point for the camera. Now the camera are the eyes of the player, so we grab the camera and move it onto there. So now we get this effect of the player. Well, it says camera game object. I'm going to rename that to pivot point because it is a pivot point for the camera. It means the camera can move around. There's the camera. There we go. Now you can leave it as main camera, but to make it really clear what it is, it's called the eyes. It's the eyes of the player. What you see through it is the camera, but it's also the eyes. If I click on game mode, can you see the camera's not actually set in the right place? So I'm going to set this to 0, 0, 0. Now if I click on the player, if I go in the scene mode, can you see there that's the little symbol for the camera? I'm going to move the camera right up to right above the head. And the pivot point, actually I move this pivot point up and move the camera on top of the pivot point, such as 0. So there we go. And that, can you see that's showing you the direction of views that way? Well, let's leave it as that, don't change that. Now if I go through game view, that's what it looks through. You see all these trees in front of me, it looks quite pretty. So that's the first bit. Now obviously we're not going to do it if I press play. Nothing much is going to happen. So you get this here. It's not rendering these trees. It takes a while sometimes. So now we want to do is we want to give the ability for the player to move around. So if we look at the player, we have by default a capsule collider, which you always need. You have a mesh renderer, which is the funky little colour around it. But what we want to do is a character controller. So we click on here and we type in character controller. Now this sets what slope it can run up, 45 degrees, so you can't run up mountains. It just sort of sets a load of parameters for moving the player around. We need a character controller so that we can have so we can control it with an FPS controller. Without that we cannot move it, so that's very important. Now the next thing we need is we're going to need some code, but before I do that I want to tidy up my asset folder up a little bit. So I've got a scenes folder. Can you see this is called at the top, sample scenes? So first thing I'm going to do is file, save as, so we open the scenes up, we're going to create a new scene, we're going to call it new. In fact I'm going to call it step 1 because this is my step 1. Why not call it new? Save it. And this calls that new, and if we go into scenes, can we see we've got new? I can get rid of sample scene now. This is my new scene. All our assets are in there, so I want to get all these things here. I'm just going to click on that one, then press shift and click that one and drag all that lot and drag it all into assets. So we've got 2 folders now. Let it do this business, that's fine. We're going to create a new folder here, create folder. It's going to be for our code. This is going to be important stuff that we're going to control. Now let me introduce you to my code. So here's some code I've got ready. I'm going to drag and drop it in, just give me a minute. Right, so I've dragged the code in. I've got a code called Lucky and a code called Player. I'll explain what they do later, but let's just use them for now and then I'll explain. So we click on the player and we're going to add the player script to it like that. Just drag and drop. Oops, excuse me, that seemed not to have worked. Try again. Drag, drop. There we go, player script, can you see? And then eyes, we're going to add the Lucky script for looking out of. There we go. Hopefully you get no errors. If you do, just try re-importing them. In other words, delete these, download them again, try again. Sometimes you get corruption, these things happen. Anyway, there we go. If you look down, you can see my shadow is the FPS, is the circle. That's not ideal. Eventually you might want to replace the actual character with an actual person, but for now we'll just do that. So I'm moving around, I'm using the WASD buttons, I'm using the mouse to look up and down. It's looking nice. I'm jumping up. It's a bit unrealistic jump, but it does work. It's pressing space to jump, by the way. And I should be able to see what the water looks like. I want to have a look at the water. Let's have a look. Oh, the water's looking nice. There we go, some nice looking water. It's got some ripple effects going. So yeah, it's looking really quite pleasant. It's a nice environment. And we've got the player character moving around so we can explore what it actually looks like. We've got a standard skybox. So that is the basics, and I hope you enjoyed that. So at this stage we've got this moving, got the player moving. I want to do one more thing. Let's add the assets. So we've got the assets, let's add the zombie. So if we go here, you've got zombie, we've got prefab, and you'll see you've got 3 zombies. Just grabs one zombie, put him on, and then press play, and let's have a look at him in the scene. You won't do anything because he's just a prefab. There you go. Oh, he's got some basic animation running. It's going through the that's the basic animation routine. It's quite funny. It's just showcasing all the animation sequences with that zombie. They're not actually. It's not actually set up. I like how he falls over. It's quite cool. I think we can probably turn him off. got his animation controllers there, zombie avatar. Yeah, we can change all that later. But for now it's fine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. This is Teacher Wayne on his first video series. By the way, I'm using OBS to record this. I'm finding it very good to do smooth little videos. Anyway, this is Teacher Wayne calling off. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.